Hello and welcome to ChinnyVision. This time, we're going down the mine. Brainache is a 1987 game by Codemasters, coded by Owen Brunette. His only game that I can see, certainly trying to look it up online. It's the only title I can find attributed to him. Starting off in the Amstrad CPC, one of the first budget games I ever bought, probably the 4th or 5th. Something like that. I know I often say that, but genuinely, yeah, one of the first ones I got. Great title music on the CPC. I'm going to start off on the CPC, although I suspect the Spectrum version is probably the original. There are lots of weird names on the title screen there. So you are Brainache and you have to retrieve all your equipment from the mine and also retrieve a diamond that is also down at the bottom of the mine. So you can see your spaceship up the top there and we're climbing down. And there's some items you have to collect. That, for example, is a ladder, and you will need that ladder to get back into the spaceship. So I'm going to try and climb back up the top there. Slightly weird arrangement. These aren't usual kind of platform things. They you can kind of climb up and down the scenery in certain places, as you can see there. But you can't do it in all of it. Your sprite flickers a fair bit on the CPC, and the scrolling, when it scrolls and jumps down, is a little bit slow and jerky. So I'm going to drop down that there, and that's how I get back up to the spaceship. So that's my ladder, so I need that. You can pick up, well, you've got to retrieve one item at a time. So we're looking for things like spanners and helmets and stuff. But there's objects around you can also pick up, like the ladder. You can pick those up in addition to any items you're rescuing as well. So here we're going down to the mine here, and it slows down as you go down. You get these, oh dear, so you have to watch out for that. The game does suffer from a bit of a Jet Set Willy death thing, because it respawns you in exactly the same position with exactly the same baddie coming for you. It gives you about half a second to get away from it, or yeah, you've got a problem. And as you can see here, got a fantastic explosion effect and nice music when you die, but yeah, it's a bit of a problem. You have to keep on moving. I've got infinite lives here on the CPC version because you'll need them. So I'm just trying to get away here. The game is very, very hard. And we're going over the Sinclair Spectrum version, 48K version only. And on the Specky, you get to see the spacecraft actually land. None of that speed problems with the CPC version scrolling, although the baddies do seem to vary in speed a little bit as well. Nice and colourful. Bit of colour clash, as you'd expect. That's one of your routes up there, so it's always good to clear those plants out the way. And you have to watch these things in the left there. You can see the sprites because they're flickering, and they turn into flying goat. I always think they're flying goat things, but oh. And as you can see, same problem on Specky as on the CPC. Although it didn't quite come at me again, but here comes a goat thing. You can only shoot left and right, which is a problem when the goat things tend to attack you from above. But that time I was lucky and it didn't actually come from that direction. We're back on the CPC and I'm just kind of floating down there in the limited gravity we have here. There's a bat there. Reminds me of the bats in the Dizzy game. Or the original Dizzy game. So that's a spanner I've got there. Now I've got to get it back up the top there. Now I should be able to climb up some of this scenery and the cobweb there and so on. You just have to work out a way to get back up. But here comes the goat. And look, they're like wasps. They attack you from very unfair angles. And they can always fly through any part of the scenery, not just the bits you can actually climb. So if you... There you go, I couldn't shoot him there. I just could not shoot him. That's one of the problems with the game. You just can't always shoot the baddie. So, climb back up to the top. And I'm going to drop the ladder. And then... There you go, I've dropped the spanner off in the spaceship, and that's showing in my inventory on the bottom left there. My oxygen is depleting, for yes, you have a limited oxygen supply, and you can't replenish it either. So here on the Specky, we're going deeper down into the mine, and there's you can pretty much shoot everything, which is handy. There's a bomb thing there, and a pickaxe, which I can't seem to pick up here on the Specky. I'm trying to pick it up, it's not quite working. You've got keys for shoot, drop, and pick up. On joystick, they're kind of combined. There is still a bit of slowdown on the Specky, especially when you're shooting or it's trying to scroll, but not as bad as the CPC, but you can see it's pretty severe slowdown here. And he's going to touch me from the top there. Right, so got to work out which bit of this we can climb through. And it gets even harder when you're trying to go through things because you can't see where you are. And you can jump a short way, but we've got to get into this lift thing here and down here. Reminds me of the lifts in Super Robin Hood with the mechanism. Watch that thing there because it looks like certain death. And we're now down to the bottom of the entire map. There's a helmet there, but let's go and explore a little bit further. Every time you return an item to the spaceship, all the enemies you've killed respawn, and they seem to be slightly more aggressive. That may just be me. Got copyright Owen Brunette, 1987 down the bottom there on the CPC. The colours have changed because my oxygen is about to run out. The red on the screen turns to orange. So being in the CPC's 4-colour mode, that means all the reds turn to orange. Codemasters logo, and yeah, copyright Owen Brunette, 1987. So this little bit of the view has been inserted afterwards because I've actually managed to get hold of Owen Brunette, the coder of the game, because I found him a bit of a mystery because he doesn't have any more credits after Brainache, and Brainache's quite good. So I asked him a few questions about the game, and he said it was a speculative build that he did when he was 16 or 17, but the game was actually published when he was 19, and it had sat around in a cupboard, or rather at the back of a drawer for a few years before he met the Darling brothers at a trade show, possibly the same trade show where the Oliver twins met the Darlings. The Spectrum version was the original, and then it was ported to the CPC when Codemasters decided to publish it. He was 19 or 20 when the CPC version came out. He did write a couple of games for the QL, but the machine was discontinued, so the games never came out. That's a great loss there. And Owen thinks the game would have had more impact if it had been released when he originally coded it, rather than later when it was published in 1987. I'd agree with that, because although it's still a good game, it would have been better if you put this game out in 1985. It's full price quality, whereas by 1987, yeah, it's a budget game, and therefore you're competing with all those other budget games, including that initial release of Codemasters games such as BMX Simulator and Super Robin Hood. Big thanks to Owen for answering my questions. He went on to work in electronics and then moved into the field of finance. So a far cry from coding, or perhaps not, because it's still all numbers really, isn't it, in the finance game? And I do like this level of detail, the little caves, the shading on the rock. Someone's taken time to think about this and how it looks. Up we go. It's a little bit fiddly getting to the top of your ladder. There we go, I've returned the diamond. Down we go. Right, so I've got some more items. I'm using a cheat, so... And when my oxygen runs out, it gets replenished. Oh, and I should have returned everything there, but I just died. That's confusing. Is it because I'm cheating, or I should have returned things in a different order? I don't know. By the way, I'm taking quite a long time to complete this on here. On the Specky, I've seen someone do a run through in 9 minutes, so yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can complete the game fairly quickly. And if you do complete the game, it loops round again. Having looked at that playthrough, it just lands again. Everything seems just a little bit faster. And just a little bit of housekeeping. Look in the description for a link to ChinnyVision 2, a channel where I put more rough around the edges stuff, little kind of bits and pieces recorded on my phone. Nothing fancy, just little extra content really. And of course you can support ChinnyVision on Patreon, where there is lots of extra content as well. Again, details in the description. And finally, and this is very important, if you subscribe to ChinnyVision, make sure on YouTube you've clicked the little icon on the subscribe button where it says subscribe, to make sure you get notifications. Otherwise you won't get notifications when I release a video. Of course, there's a new ChinnyVision video out every Friday, but sometimes I do stick stuff out midweek as well. Brainache isn't a game I'd looked at since, well, probably the late 1980s, and I was surprised how well it stood up. Indeed, I enjoyed it more now than I did back in the day when I was a kid. I found it a little bit intimidating and difficult. And yes, I had a cheat on the Amstrad version, but it played pretty well and it seemed pretty fair as well. Okay, the goat things are a little bit annoying because they circle around and attack you from above and below. And yes, it would be nice to be able to shoot up and down and even diagonally, and I think that would add much to the game. But I found it a very well thought out game with detailed graphics, a little bit slow and flickery, granted, especially on the CPC, but this is $1.99. The music is absolutely fantastic on the CPC version, really good, and the spot effects as well work well. For me, one of the biggest shames about Brainache is that Owen Brunette didn't go to write more games, because he's showing the same kind of flair that the Oliver twins are showing the Super Robin Hood here, especially when you consider this game would have been originally coded in 85, early 86 perhaps, and it came out in 87. Certainly as a budget game it's good enough, but think about it, if it had been released a few years earlier, it would certainly be even more impressive. I just can't see why other publishers would have turned this game down. I think Codemasters got themselves a good deal because it's certainly a high quality budget release. It's not a game most people would have heard of, and no, I don't think it's a standout classic, but it's certainly an overlooked early Codemasters game, and one I can strongly recommend you give a blast for 15 or 20 minutes.